That's right. We are back for another Bitcoin Season 2 Writers Room. Charlie and Colin, we are making sure we don't miss a week, but this one's seat of our pants because
This one's
Colin,
tough. I am a deflated balloon. I look like I've just been sleeping under underpasses for the last month.
you
I
look like
just
a
got to
troll.
Abu Dhabi for the Bitcoin MENA conference. I've been up for almost 30 hours, 15-hour flight on Qatar Air to Doha and then to Abu Dhabi. But we are here. Nothing
We're
stops for the pod.
we're here. You're gonna get an abbreviated but also less filtered and maybe a little more loopy version of Colin
Very loose.
today. So, but thanks for joining us. This is Bitcoin Season 2. This is the Writers Room. We stream on Fridays and then cross posts on streaming platforms on Saturdays. And this is a more editorialized Charlie and Colin talk about interesting things happening across the Bitcoin space. Sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's ordinal, sometimes it's hardcore maxi. You don't know what you're gonna get. It's like a box of
Give me
chocolates.
a box of chocolates or Birdie Bots, every flavored beans.
Exactly. But one thing that you know you're going to get is a word from our sponsor. Bitcoin Season 2 is brought to you by Botanix. Botanix Labs is pioneering a new direction for DeFi with the first EVM L2 running on Bitcoin that's built to be forward secure, decentralized, and share gas fees generated by the network with users. See the future of DeFi at Botanix, botanixlabs.xyz. So yeah, we are going to talk once again about the latest developments in the discussion about Bitcoin soft forks as the title of this clickbait tweet
The
over the
biggest
yeah.
story that's not a story because it's something that most people don't understand, and there's also just so many moving parts that it's hard to like form a coherent and cohesive narrative.
Yeah.
But like you said from the title, you've got this wonderful chart from Bitcoin Wiki that harkens back to the SegWit activation chart, and I guess we might have had one for Taproot. I don't remember.
I couldn't find one for Taproot. There may have been one
Interesting.
for Taproot. So okay, back up. What are we talking about? So I have the title of this. You should be paying attention to this Bitcoin dev chart because what it is that a lot of people go, well, which devs support which things? And the answer is even the devs themselves don't actually know. But historically, there have been like charts or some kind of repository where developers officially declare what they think about different proposals. One of those proposals is OpCat, OpCTV. We have the package of opcodes, which we call L-Enhance. We have OpVault. So we've got a bunch of different like soft fork proposals, and we're going to bundle these into the concept of the we're going to limit them to covenant soft fork proposals. But so I'll give a little context here because here we have independent developer dev/FDO 14440 bytes. He's an independent developer. We call him floppy disk guy. That's like the 3.5-inch floppy disk guy, and he posted in in the Bitcoin mailing list saying that he is going to start tracking support from Bitcoin developers for covenants. He's going to track who supports what, that kind of thing, and he's going to do it on what's called the Bitcoin Wiki. What's the Bitcoin Wiki? Well, it is
It's a wiki
it's a
for
wiki.
Bitcoin.
It's a wiki for Bitcoin. It's not official, but it's about as
No.
official as any like
I
kind of like
I was about to say it's about as official as anything else, and also this is why, like, the floppy disk guy. This is why, like, for your boomer family who is just now buying into Bitcoin because at 100K, you don't want them to know about this kind of stuff. You don't want them to know that the guy indexing support for one of the most consequential soft forks in recent memory is an anonymous developer named floppy disk guy. That doesn't compute with boomers. You don't want them to know that.
yeah, especially because like I love you, floppy disk guy, because I know you're watching, but he'll go off and he'll tweet some things which are very, very not related to covenants, and they can be very spicy. And so, like, this is the thing: is like this is kind of how Bitcoin discourse goes. Is like people just kind of go do things, and sometimes those things work, and sometimes they don't. But what's the Bitcoin Wiki? It's an unofficial, official wiki project which tracks all things happening in Bitcoin. So if you have a question about how Bitcoin works technically or about Bitcoin history, you will probably find it on this wiki. And this wiki project has admins and custodians and clerks and people who contribute to it. But it also does kind of go through an approval process, just like Wikipedia itself. So these are dynamics at play. Let's go back and let's just look at the latest, the biggest software previous to this, SegWit in 2017. We have here a table with a bunch of Bitcoin developers, their affiliation, and what they think about back in 2016 if we should soft fork in SegWit. And we have here like a saying that you can give a few options. You can say you don't support it. You think it's think it is deficient or it needs something. You can say you're still evaluating it. You can say it's you like it, but it still needs something. You can say it's acceptable, and you can say I prefer, I endorse this. So like there's a range of like opinions you can have. And SegWit did this, and you can look at this. In this column here, you have what, like 30 developers, and all but like 2 or 3 say that they all prefer SegWit.
Pretty overwhelming consensus. I also love that SegWit 2x, the hard fork version, has its own columns, and people put like lol, not just no, but they put like
yeah, Matt Corallo put LOL for SegWit 2x.
I also like that they have the activation method too. I think that's kind of like a missing piece and is important to have in these kind of, breakdowns of who's, is signaling for what, or what has consensus for. I can't talk. It's been too long.
You're doing great.
You have the activation method in there too. That's good to see.
Yeah. So the thing is, we don't have an activation proposal for any of the. Well, we have BIP 8 and 9, but we don't really have like much discussion on specific like steps towards activation for any of the covenant proposals right now. But like this is a thing which has been used. This is a mechanism for people to invite developers, people in the Bitcoin technical community, to log and publicly demonstrate their thoughts on these specific proposals. So now we have here what we call the covenants support page on this Bitcoin wiki. And you have a similar kind of key here. You can say you don't support it with no. Deficient, you're okay with the idea, but you consider it not having sufficient community support. Weak, wanting, acceptable, and you prefer. And Floppy Disk Guy and other members of the Bitcoin technical community have been populating this a lot in the past week. We went from like 5 people earlier this week to now like 20 or so.
So that's my question. How does someone get added to this? Do they just request to be added? And if like,
so I will get into it. So it's very similar to other wikis. Let's just go straight to that. So you can see here at the top of this page, the view history, and this is just how all wikis work. You can see here that certain users or certain accounts, which we assume are those developers' accounts, basically make edits or merge requests to the wiki to say, I'm going to add myself on here. And then those can then be merged by people with those sufficient permissions. So that there is a bit of like kind of a little bit of a check system to this, but
it is kind of a Breakfast Club scenario. It's like, are you cool enough?
Yeah, it's like yeah, because like the if you think about it, like what qualifies someone to talk about this, like some of these people I don't think have any commits to Bitcoin Core, yet they're on here. You have kind of a grab bag of people. You have like Hunter Beast, who has Surmount Systems. You have Ethan Heilman, who wrote OpCat, but he's not like, he doesn't work full time on Bitcoin. You have,
I like James O'Byrne there, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. We need to get that figured out.
Yeah.
With the triple question mark. which is
with
really like kind of
affiliation.
like the best scenario in a way. It's like I don't
Yeah.
have really like Bitcoin is my affiliation. I don't have a dog in this fight past that.
Yeah, so a lot of this is self-reported, but as we can see here, I mean, we'll come back to the like kind of permissioning and the mechanics of who gets to say what on this. But we have from the outset, a week or two into this, a pretty broad cohort of developers having chimed in. We have Orkin with Citrea. We have Reardon, author of Enhance, Robin Linus of BitVM, Stephen Roos, James O'Byrne, John Attack, Chris Gita, Ben Carmen. So what do we see? Like right out the gate, we see Enhance is a suite of opcodes, one of which is CTV. We can see here, Colin, that CTV appears to be very overwhelmingly supported, with the exception with just one single no so far from Robin Linus. We have a couple comments from ZMN and Instagibbs with Spiral saying that is a wanting opcode or a weak opcode. But overall, we've got
Overall, it seems pretty sweeping support from at least the developers showcased here, which to be fair are some of the most vocal about these things. Also really interesting because I've seen this a lot recently about CSFS. I actually don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. Check sig from stack. Thank you. That makes more sense. And that's one that's kind of been pulled out recently. I remember that being talked about, a few years ago, right after Taproot. And so it's nice to see that in there too. It does kind of seem like CTV, we kind of got pushback from a few people for saying at OpNext that CTV seems to have near universal support. And it really does seem to have a lot of support behind it. But Cat does too, though people seem to think that it's more deficient, like there's still a lot of there's two no's, but everything else is kind of like, okay, it's not the best, but I think they kind of,
to be clear, like deficient on, according to this key, says that they are okay with the idea of this Cat proposal, but they consider it having insufficient community support, which is very interesting because I would say if you're just going to rack up like raw gross numbers of people who are Bitcoin users and say which opcode has the most awareness and the most explicit by just raw number of Bitcoin user support, it would overwhelmingly be UpCat just because it's had the most marketing to it.
Yeah, right. And I think that gets into something we discussed at OpNext. It's like what the difference between like chatter and marketing and like, how should we say, blessings from the high priests of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And I don't put it like that as like a derogatory way, but like it really is. Like there's a reason that developers are the ones who say yes or no to these things, because the most people, myself included, don't really have the ability to actually look at what this is going to do to the code, right? And so all that being said, though, I think the wording for the deficient and the weak labels is kind of strange. Like you don't think that it has enough consensus. Like I honestly feel like that's like kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you should just say that like this is not my favorite, but like I'm okay with it, instead of being like, well, I don't know if it has enough consensus, because then we get people just twiddling their thumbs, right, and saying like, well, this guy thinks there's not enough consensus. It's like, well, you're really just saying that you don't really like it that much, but you're fine with it.
Yeah, and this has actually been brought up before. Like, again, this is floppy disk guy just kind of putting this up there and trying to mimic the previous example of this like support chart from SegWit. And a few people have mentioned like a semantics issue with some of the deficient and weak. And I would hope that, I think it'd be good to take that feedback and update it and maybe provide a little more clarity on.
I also like what just a scale system, 5 to 1, 1 to 5, like just like does that? I mean, that seems to make sense to me. The weak one is the weirdest to me. It's like it's color coded differently than everything else.
Yeah, I do like the idea of saying that you are for an opcode, but like differentiating that from saying, do you think it should be soft forked in? Because I think there's a lot of people who would like
Yeah.
say, I think it'd be great to have that opcode, or I think the opcode is okay. But they, it is both a technical and a social, like it's really hard to differentiate between what is technical and what is social when discussing these opcodes.
Right. 100%. But I do
There's
think that, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, you go. I'll chime in after.
I was gonna say that I think it's interesting to see which particular opcodes or which dimensions of this support chart are lacking a lot, because like a lot of people don't know that the L enhanced proposal includes op pair commit, or that sig hash APO is another covenant opcode, and these are an op CCV, which is check contract verify. These are 3 opcodes which have very like little actual definitive like comments from the developers who have participated so far. I think because they're like not very talked about. So it really shows that
Yeah.
these developers have either due to time or just not super interest, not because, or maybe lack of interest, like they just have not given a lot of thought to some of these opcodes, because these are humans making decisions, not
Yeah, and
robots.
that's interesting. I believe Christian Decker is the author of Sig Hash Any Previous Output, and that was one of the ones. I mean, that was kind of discussed alongside CTV right after Taproot. I don't think Christian pushed it as much as Jeremy did, CTV, and maybe that's part of the reason why it's fallen off the train a little bit. But maybe there is something there. There's some signal from developers that they would rather have CTV because it's pretty elegant and it's very simple. I'm sure there are some things that SIGAsh APO can do that CTV can't. But yeah, I think that what I was going to say earlier is just that this is, I think something like this is really important for moving the needle forward. I mean, we clearly have a lot of developers who think that CTV should be activated. So I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the quibbling dies down over the next few months, and like we actually are going to get a soft fork within the next year. At least that would be my hope. I would really love to see CTV activated personally, and it would be nice to have OpCat with it too. I mean, it seems like there's no reason not to bundle them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just repeat what I look at like what Shinobi has said multiple times, where he says we need to keep it focused. He says I want to keep it focused. I want to be clear that like the 3 opcodes he likes, so we should focus on, are cat, check sig from stack, and CTV. They apparently go together. Again, this is what I hear from the devs that I talk to. They go together really well. They complement each other really well, and it's kind of like a bite-sized thing to wrap your head around. But like, yeah, I mean, so much of the hemming and hawing over this conversation has been like, well, like what do devs actually think, and people kind of appealing to this idea that nobody supports something, or that nobody actually thinks that. And while this chart does not represent, I would say, a substantial enough cohort of notable Bitcoin developers yet, it does start to paint a picture towards like what the landscape probably looks like as far as developers' opinions on these. So
100%.
like we'll have to see. Like I think as this chart, and I would hope this chart doubles or triples in size over the next couple weeks, so that we can get more of an idea of like, is there rough consensus on some of these topics? And because I would like, we've been sitting on our hands so long, we've been wondering, we've been talking about this in like in abstract, like devs say this, the community says that, without actual categorization and cataloging. So
Big first step.
big first step. I think to wrap this up, I think I'll also actually reopen the chart here, which is I thought that it was interesting to note that because this is a wiki, the wiki does have admins, and I was kind of looking at the admin list of the wiki here of only like 10 people, 1 or 2 of whom I think maybe like automated like cleanup bots. And it is like a list of the old OGs in Bitcoin. Greg Maxwell, Luke Jr., Thamos, maybe some of these other people too. But like, these are the people who are like, in order for this chart to exist on the Bitcoin wiki, they do have to like not nuke it. So they kind of do have to say this is something that people can add and contribute to. And what's some of these people have been, I would say some of these people, really only a couple of these people have even spoken on these topics, Luke being one of them. And I think one of the interesting things that I noticed when I started looking at the actual user contribution history, Colin, is that out of these 10 users, only 2 of them I would even remotely qualify as active anymore. Can you guess who the 2 are?
On this current list?
Yeah, among the admins on the Bitcoin wiki, we have.
I mean, I guess you could say Luke, right? Are you talking about on
Yep.
Bitcoin Core specifically?
No, just in the wiki. Yep, you're right. Luke has allowed merge edits from Reardon in the past 24 hours.
Yeah, so Luke would be the other one, and then I think you mentioned the other one before we started, but it's definitely not Belcher or Maxwell, right?
Yeah, those are OGs who have effectively kind of not participated in Bitcoin discussion for a long time.
Is the other one Warren Tamagami? Or
No.
Togami?
No, his last commit, his last merge is 2017.
Wow.
Which it would be, I would say, the ultimate Bitcoin moderator, Thamos. If you're not familiar with Thamos is the infamous mod of r/Bitcoin, the subreddit, who had a very, very heavy hand controlling what could and could not be posted during the block size war on the Bitcoin subreddit. I think it confused a lot of people. So it's very interesting. Amos has, from what I can tell from his merge edits and into this Bitcoin wiki, given his implicit support for this being a valid page on the Bitcoin wiki. So
We do a little bit of gatekeeping in this industry.
we do a little bit of gatekeeping. But anyway, we're going to keep that tight. The 25 minutes. It is 25 minutes. You've been awake for 25 hours.
My body appreciates it.
Yeah. We're going to wrap this up. But if you are listening to this and you are at Bitcoin Mana, or if you are in the Middle East and headed to the UAE sometime in the next 24 hours, go find Colin, bother him, and
go hit your boy up. I'm gonna be moderating 2 panels, one on economic scaling for Bitcoin miners, one on Bitcoin mining in the Middle East, and then I will be a panelist on a talk called Bitcoin in the Age of Trump. Pretty excited about that one. Excited about all. The BTC Inc. team always puts on a good conference. So if you see me walking around, give me a hey ho, and we'll chop it up. Looking forward to seeing people at the conference, and yeah, that's all I got.
That's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go to all the places you can stream, and don't forget to